here's the deal. I had a bunch of topics that I wanted to talk about, but I couldn't really narrow it down to one. So instead, I wrote those topics down on pieces of paper, and then I put them in a hat. I think there's about 7 or 8 topics in here that I wrote down, and I'm going to show you the pieces of paper. See, they're all on separate sheets and covered up, so I don't know what they're going to be. And I'm going to go in there blind and pick out a topic for today. Close my eyes even though I really can't see. Okay, here we go. This one is accepting criticism. You can see that. Accepting criticism. So I guess that's what's in store for today. So, accepting criticism. That's a good one. Because a lot of people, including myself, have had a tough time with accepting criticism in their life, whether it's from a family member, somebody at work, or just someone on the street that might offer advice. And see, that's the thing. It's how you perceive that criticism. Because when you hear that word criticism or critique, it's often viewed as negative. Why is this person criticizing me? Do they have the right to criticize me? Do they even know me? They don't know what I'm going through. There's all these aspects of criticism that people use to make it seem like it's an attack on them personally, an attack on their character, an attack on them as a human being and what they represent. And a lot of times that's not the case. Criticism doesn't always have to be negative. Criticism, a lot of times, can be seen as positive. But that all depends on you as the person and how you perceive it, how you internalize it. And that's the real question here. Why can somebody view criticism as a negative, but at the same time, with that same criticism, can also be viewed or perceived as something positive? There are many factors that go into this. One of them is who it's coming from. Is it a family member? Is it a friend? Is it a coworker? But with that factor, for the most part, we don't have control over it. We can't control what certain people say to us. That is out of our control. But what we do have control over is how we react. So if somebody criticizes us, it is up to us. It is up to you. It is up to me to perceive it as something negative or to perceive it as something positive. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people, when they talk to you, aren't offering you advice or criticism. They might just be spewing venom. They might be downright nasty, downright mean. And that's not what I'm talking about here. Those are people that are trying to bring you down for some reason or another, but that doesn't concern you. What I'm talking about here is when somebody is offering you criticism that's in the form of advice or in the form of feedback. And I don't mean that you have to accept the criticism all the time. Accepting criticism in this instance means being able to listen to it, being able to understand where this person is coming from. And you or me can ultimately make that decision whether or not that is something that we want to use going forward. What I want to stress here and what I want to really highlight is that we don't want to completely shut people off. We don't want to say this person doesn't offer me anything. They never have good advice. They can't do anything to help me out in life. That's being very negative. That's being defensive. That's not allowing somebody or anybody in your life or a stranger on the street to possibly impact you in a positive way. Because if you cut somebody off or you totally write somebody off before you hear the message, are you really doing yourself the service that you really deserve? Are you really allowing yourself to possibly grow or not? Because when you totally put somebody off and look at them and say, this person can't do anything for me, then you're gonna go into that negative space. But if you accept criticism in terms of allowing somebody to speak their mind, offer a different perspective because they're on the outside looking in while you're on the inside looking out, they might be able to give you a fresh look, a fresh point of view on something that you never thought was even possible, and a suggestion that could help you grow in the future. After talking this out, I realized that when somebody doesn't want to accept criticism, they're being very closed-minded. They don't want to hear anybody's thoughts, opinions, advice, or feedback. They shut that all off. Unless possibly if somebody says something to them that they agree with. But if it's something that they don't agree with, or they don't think is in line with them, then they're going to completely shut them off. Now that can happen. Somebody can tell you something and you might not agree with it. It might not be in line with your true beliefs and your core values. But listen. Listen to a person and what they have to say before you completely shut them off, cut them out, and pretty much write them off. Don't listen to what they have to say. What we should be is open-minded. We should be open-minded to what people have to say, because at least when we're open-minded, we give people a chance to speak their mind. And then we have the decision. We ultimately have the choice and the decision to accept that criticism and use it, or to look at it and say, this doesn't really serve me, thank you very much, but I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. You see, instead of completely shutting somebody off before we hear a message that could possibly help us, let yourself hear that message. Don't sell yourself short and not allow a possible breakthrough occur from somebody else's fresh perspective. But then once you hear it, you, me, anybody can make a decision as to whether we accept it and use it or let it go. Just don't completely write somebody off before you can hear that message. We never know where it's going to come from. It might be presented to us from a family member or a coworker, but it also might be from somebody that we never even met before until that moment. We might bump into them when we're out in the world. But we need to be open-minded. It can come from somebody older than us. It can come from somebody way younger than you or me. I've received a message or a few messages before from a 5-year-old. It blew my mind. But if we're not open to receiving this feedback, this criticism from everybody, from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, races, religions, genders, all that, if we're not willing to be open, then we're not doing ourselves service. We're not going to let ourselves grow. We're going to stop ourselves from being able to be the best versions of ourselves because we're only going to take in things that we agree with, always. And that's just going to possibly feed our ego or allow us to live a certain life that might not be most fulfilling or the best for us. But because we have maybe all these people that agree with us, or all the things that they say we agree with, we're not doing ourselves any service. So just try to be open. Try to allow criticism to enter your life. But it's up to you to make that decision whether you want to accept it or let it go. But don't cut the message off too quick. Don't allow it to not make it to your ears so you can be the person that makes that decision. And I'll leave you with this. After talking about this topic, accepting criticism, and going through being open-minded as opposed to closed-minded, it kind of brought me back to my early days in recovery when I heard this saying. And it went like this. Don't leave before the miracle. Which, in this case, means don't shut someone down. Don't cut them off. Don't totally write them off before you hear that message. Because in that message might be a miracle. It might change your life. It might save your life. But if we're closed-minded, our ears will never hear it. Our mind will never be able to grasp it. And we quite possibly might not be able to use it in our life to make us better versions of ourselves. So don't leave before that miracle. Allow this criticism, this feedback, this advice into your life, because it can save your life. I know for a fact it saved mine. I can't stress this enough. Please, don't leave before the miracle. Don't totally write someone off before you hear the message. It can be called criticism, it can be called advice, thoughts, or feedback, but in reality, it's just a message. We don't want to totally shut someone down before we hear it. It might not serve us, but we owe it to ourselves to listen to that message. Please, don't leave before that miracle. Everybody, have a great day. Have a blessed day. Always be grateful. Be grateful for this moment and smile. I'll see everybody soon. Peace.